Bună ziua!
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends, dear colleagues from the Parliament, from the government, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, Your Excellencies, dear Mrs. Ploskov, Deputy Speaker of the Knesset of the State of Israel, Mr. Paul Pecker, our guest from the United States of America, the interpretation into Romanian, English and Russian is provided, so I'm honored to greet you at this round table to commemorate and to pay tribute to the Holocaust victims. I'm honored because for the first time in many years we have achieved commitments and we have the determination to eliminate all the reluctance that have prevented us to know our history and to learn its lessons. After this event, from this beautiful hall, Europe Hall, I would like to invite you to an exhibition which is organized here in the Parliament, dedicated to the Holocaust in Bessarabia, and after that we'll go to watch an exceptional movie, and I think the trailer of this movie speaks for itself. I'd like to pay attention to the screen.
Somewhere, years ago, there was a mother who knew that her son was the cleverest, the most talented, the most beautiful. And now the brightest and most beautiful child in the world lies in a strange street. And his name isn't even known.
We should have seen the worst coming. But we did not want to know the truth. We did not want to see it.
Does the world know about our suffering?
Emanuel Ringelblum understood that he had a story to tell, and it was the most important story he would ever have to tell.
Almost all the photography that we have was taken by the German propaganda unit.
Will the Germans write our history, or will we write our history?
Let the witness be our writing.
Their goal was to write the history of the war from the Jewish perspective. And there was no time to lose.
The worst scenario was in the process of happening.
Writing becomes the only recourse. That was the ultimate act of defiance.
You don't really need guns to fight. You could fight with paper and pen.
This is what made this collection of documents so absolutely unique.
One thing is clear to all of us. Our devotion and constant terror have not been in vain. Among those taken away was Rabbi Uberman,
Getty 16.
Israel Lichtenstein,
Leib Golden,
Abraham Levin,
Halina.
Emanuel Ringelblum.
Remember, my name is Nahum Gazivich.
I am writing this as a witness.
Thank you very much. Indeed, who is writing our history? It is a question very difficult to answer, especially if we are not prepared to be honest with ourselves. The Holocaust history is, in fact, our history of all of us. It is our tragedy. And being aware of this fact at the level of the state and of at the level of each inhabitant of the Republic of Moldova is an achievement that we have to strengthen in the future. In November 2015, we adopted a decision on the National Remembrance Day of the Holocaust victims. Then in 2016, we adopted the political statement by which we officially accepted the results of the research carried out by the International Commission for the Study of the Holocaust, chaired by Elie Wiesel, formulated in the final report of 2004. By this statement, we have condemned the actions of anti-Semitism, xenophobia, persecution and extermination of Jews and Roma people, and also any attempt to ignore and deny the Holocaust. The statement is at the same time a tribute to the victims and to the survivors of the Holocaust. We have adopted also a set of commitments, and each year the report on these commitments is done here in the Parliament. This year, the Republic of Moldova has adopted the definition of the anti-Semitism approved by the plenary meeting of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. This decision will strengthen the policy of eliminating discriminatory, racist, anti-Semite and extremist forms and acts. Our country is determined to identify the methods of combating of different acts of anti-Semitism, discrimination and intolerance. We have started the rehabilitation of the Jewish cemetery in Chisinau, and some months ago this place was a disaster. In the first stage the place was deforested, and further on the graves will be rehabilitated and the access routes to the cemetery will be arranged. It is a complex topic, and I'd like to underline that on this occasion we need the whole support and the involvement of the national and international Jewish community in order to bring back the peace to this place. We also thought that the Jewish cemetery could be transformed in time into a cultural and historical center. Besides the history of the Museum of Jewish History in the Republic of Moldova, which was established last year. Now it is time to make our commitment to the new generations. It is time to start learning that the fight against intolerance, anti-Semitism and xenophobia, discrimination is an obligation of each of us. And I think that soon the pupils in the schools will start learning the history of Holocaust with those 350,000 human lives that were violently disrupted, and also those 79 righteous men among nations that had the courage to resist and to remain human in times when humanity was not a great value. It is time to recover our history, to act together, to raise awareness, and not to allow the repetition of these events. I'd like to thank the Jewish community who has been involved together with our authorities to organize the events of this year dedicated to the memory of the Holocaust victims. And I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Bilinkis, who is the President of the Jewish community in the Republic of Moldova. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I'd like to welcome all the participants at the meeting, Requiem meeting, also all the diplomats, the experts, the leaders of the social society who have joined us in this event that is taking place in the main legislative authority of our country. I'd also like to appreciate our guests who came from abroad in order to celebrate this Remembrance Day. Preparing for this speech, I was looking through my speeches on these topics, but I can see that there are many questions that have been solved on this issue when there were some questions raised to the Holocaust, but now we are very committed to this event, and I think this is the main result of our efforts. Today, a lot of things have been told about the Parliament statement adopted in 2016 about the recognition of the results of the researches of the Foundation of Elie Wiesel, and I think this is a very courageous political will. I'd like to read an excerpt from this statement. In the 30s and 40s of the last century, there were repressions due to ethnic belonging. This statement says about the pogroms and deportations, the creation of concentration camps on the territory of the Republic of Moldova. Only in 1941, in Bessarabia and Bukovina, there were murdered a number of 45,000, 60,000 of Jews, and even a larger number died in deportation in Transnistria. Even nowadays, we have organizations that deny the importance of these events that took place on the Republic of Moldova. End of citation. It seems that nothing can be added to this, but we praise and we appreciate very much this document which was adopted by the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova. All the countries that have passed through this tragedy must also undertake some steps, some efforts in order to give signals to the international community that the Republic of Moldova is aware and is ready to act to punish the people for denying the Holocaust. Some people try to rediscover history or to rewrite the history. These are people who don't want to pay attention to the facts and to the acts that have taken place here. The Parliament of the Republic of Moldova, the government of the Republic of Moldova, the President have undertaken to change the criminal code in this sense, because I think that any freedom ends there where the people are denied their rights. The meetings for Requiem meetings in the Republic of Moldova have taken place for many years at the initiative of the Jewish community. But this year I'd like to specify that all the events organized for the Holocaust victims commemoration are under the patronage of the Republic of Moldova, of the government and the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova. This initiative belongs to the chairman of the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Kandu, and I'm very grateful for this, because we have to look at this from the perspective of the whole society. And it was strange when the Jewish community gathered to pay tribute to the Holocaust victims and to those 6 million victims that have died all over the world. And it was also strange when the Jewish pupils went to performances dedicated to this. But now I am very glad and happy that the situation has changed, and I can see good dynamics in this. And I think this will come to all the society, to all the members of the society. If you'll ask some passers-by if there was a ghetto in Chisinau, they will not be able to answer you, because there was no information about this, about ghettos organized in Chisinau. That's why it is very important to recover history, to distribute the information on this topic, to the fact that the Republic of Moldova has decided to open a museum of Jewish history and on Holocaust history. I think that the situation is changing. if before the monuments to the victims of Holocaust were raised only on the funds and at the initiative of the Jewish community, today we can see that the government is taking a very active, has a very active involvement in this, and the situation is changing to the best. This speaks for the fact that the decision has been taken by the political elite of our country, and they have changed their opinion on this. And I'd like also to end by the fragment from the statement of the Republic of Moldova. The Holocaust is a very big tragedy. And also it is a lesson, and we don't have to ignore and to deny it. This is linked to the anti-Semitism and the intolerance, and we must learn not to eliminate these facts. 101 MPs of the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova have signed this statement. We all have signed this statement. Dear colleagues, I want to tell you that we have to proceed with our actions and efforts and not to allow the repetition of these events. Thank you. Thank you, dear Mr. Bilinkis. We have listened to the President of the Jewish Community of the Republic of Moldova, and I want to underline that Mr. Bilinkis is always participating in our events, and we have a very good collaboration, and I hope for future collaboration. I'd like to introduce the next person. We are speaking about Mrs. Tali Plosko, who is the Deputy Speaker of the Knesset of the State of Israel, and also is the Chair of the Israel-Moldova Parliamentary Friendship Group, and originates from Belz, from the Republic of Moldova, and we are very glad to have Mrs. Plosko among our guests. And we wish her welcome back at home in the Republic of Moldova, and we are honored that you succeeded to visit us on this occasion and for this event. Dear Mr. Chairman, dear ministers, dear guests, I'd like to start my speech with acknowledgments. I appreciate very much your invitation to take part in these events, and also I'm very pleased to see that the program, the agenda of this event is for 1 week, not only for 1 or 2 days, and includes all the cultural and educational institutions where the Holocaust topic is raised. And we understand very well that we are speaking about a tragedy, a very big tragedy of the last century, which in which 6 million people died, and they were innocent and were guilty of only being Jewish people. And if we are looking now what is happening in our world today, we understand very well. On the one hand, we remember. On the other hand, we can hear about some actions which are not pleasant at all. We hear about anti-Semitism, we hear about the destruction of the monuments of our history. We still hear and see the groups of neo-Nazis. They deny this tragedy and they continue thinking like they used to think in the last century. And today I'm very happy that a lot of countries, including the Republic of Moldova, commemorate the International Remembrance Day in order to bring back this topic on the table, in order to remember all the actions, all the facts that happened then. And this all is only with one purpose: to avoid the repetition of these events. 2 years ago, I participated in the Peace March in Poland. I visited Oswiecim concentration camp, Birkenau. These are terrible places. It is impossible to stay. Everyone who visits these places are very touched. And if we are thinking about the Jewish families, each family has a person or member of the family who suffered in those times only because they were Jewish. That's why our duty today is to speak again on this topic. 2 days ago, I had a speech during a ceremony in Israel, and there were some survivors participating in this ceremony, and I asked them, please tell us everything that you remember, that you suffered. Share your thoughts with the members of your family, with the members of the community, because when we hear from the witnesses, when we see your eyes full of tears, we cannot stay untouched, unmoved. We have to give the possibility to the survivors of these atrocities to tell us about them. So we saw the trailer of the movie. It is very right. It is important to tell how the things happened. If we keep silence on this, it means that we accept the atrocities that have happened. So that's why we must speak about this. So now we have new generations. Tomorrow our children, our grandchildren, and they must know about this. They must remember all of this. I'd like to end by expressing my gratitude to Mr. Kandu for his initiative to organize these events in the Republic of Moldova this year, and also the Minister of Culture, Mrs. Monica Babuk. You are so emotional about this topic, and I'd like to express my personal gratitude to you. And also I'd like to express my gratitude to all the people who participated in these events today. I felt that everybody present there were very touched. I'd like to express my gratitude to anyone present in this hall, the ambassadors, the diplomatic corps, the representatives, and I understand that all the countries represented here share our position on this topic. And I also want to express my gratitude to our Jewish community in the Republic of Moldova and its chair, Mr. Bilinkis, with which I had more meetings. And we are speaking on the importance of preserving these relations between our two countries and to develop these relations. And I would also like to underscore that the relations between our two countries, Israel and the Republic of Moldova, we have a great potential for the development of these relations. And I personally am going to take an active part in the development of these relations. And I'd like to wish to everyone who is involved in the parliamentary elections, and I'd like to come back to strengthen, to continue our relations, our work on this topic. Once again, thank you very much to my country, to the country in which I was born, and to the governance of this country for the fact they didn't forget and for the fact that you pay tribute to our parents, to our grandparents. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ploskov. The connections between the Republic of Moldova and Israel are very important. They are more beautiful when they are produced by people like you who come from the Republic of Moldova. Allow me to give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Integration of the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Tudor Ulyanovsky. This minister, led by him, has a special role in promoting not only the interests of the Republic of Moldova, but the relations that have to do with the commemoration of Holocaust victims. Thank you, dear Mr. Speaker Kandu, dear Mr. Chair Paul Pecker, dear Mrs. Deputy Speaker Talis Ploskov, honored and distinguished ambassadors, friends. I would like to express my gratitude and appreciations for the initiative of Mr. Kandu to organize under the auspices of the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova and the government of the Republic of Moldova, together with the Jewish community. These events are commemorating the Holocaust. I would like to thank our guests who honored us with their presence. Your attitude towards the truth of the past is a fundamental principle in any society. The Republic of Moldova registered in the past years important progress and visible progress on the recovery of the memory of Holocaust, acknowledged here at home and by Jewish international organization and also by international organizations. I would like to thank the Jewish community in Moldova, and also its president, Mr. Belinkis, for its contribution to achieving these purposes and goals. Our ministry has also had an important contribution. For example, our role in the Alliance for the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. So, an important achievement was the adoption of a decision regarding the working definition of the Holocaust. So, I would like to thank our colleagues who supported the normative framework for the adoption of this working definition. We would like to mention that in November 2018 we addressed a request to the Office for to ODIHR for support on condemning, on punishing the crimes like Holocaust and persecution based on ethnic criteria. Therefore, we send an instruction, a clear directive to all the embassies of the Republic of Moldova to contribute to funds, to exhibits and objects that are to be displayed in a future museum on the history of Jews and the Holocaust. We also support and promote actions combating xenophobia, racism, and anti-Semitism. We have developed a fruitful collaboration with the USA on such topics. I would like to thank Mr. Paul Pecker and the Washington administration for helping us achieving progress in this field. We also support and we appreciate the efforts of the State of Israel. We have mutual friendship relations with this country, and we have a common goal of fighting terrorism and anti-Semitism bilaterally and multilaterally. We also make efforts to develop cooperation with International Jewish Association. In this regard, permanently in our ministry and in our visits abroad, we have meetings with many famous and reputable Jewish international organizations. I would like to express my hope that these important remembrance events that have taken place in the whole country during last week and during the current week will contribute on consolidating information about this atrocity of the humankind. We also paid in such a way honorable homage to the victims of the Holocaust. Dear Mr. Minister, thank you very much. The Republic of Moldova has very good friends and enjoys their support from countries, from international organizations, and with the support and help of their partners, the authorities managed to achieve a lot of goals. Such contribution came from the USA, especially from a person that I met in August last year that for the first time actually raised the issue of the Jewish cemetery in Chisinau. On his advice, we proceeded to changing the to shifting the cemetery under the administration of the municipality, which is actually of the government. He came with this idea and advice on how to do it better, and the Jewish cemetery is an important element of our history, is a holy place. The authorities of the capital and of the country must take it into consideration and take care of it. This person is Mr. Paul Pecker, who has always been supporting us in these initiatives. I'm inviting him to take the floor with his message. Thank you very much for being present here today, Mr. Paul Pecker, Chairman of the U.S. Commission for the President of Preservation of Americans' Heritage Abroad.
To follow that, but good afternoon, Speaker Kandu, Ambassador Hogan, Skandover, Knesset, Tali Plaskarov, Moldovan government and parliament, members of the diplomatic corps, and representatives of the Jewish community. Thank you for organizing today's important events. It's a privilege and an honor to be your friend and your partner. For those of you who were there for the first part of today's program, I think I'm not only going to be speaking for myself, but I'll probably be speaking for the tens of thousands souls who are buried in the Kishinev cemetery, who are probably looking down and are here today also, not only wanting to give thanks to the Parliament, to Speaker Kandu, to members of the government, but are probably smiling while looking down on this event also today, because this is something where now they're probably all very proud Moldovans after seeing what the government is doing on their behalf. I have the privilege of serving as chairman of the United States Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. I've been tasked by President Trump with protecting and preserving historic sites of great significance to Americans and their ancestors. Looking back at the heritage and history of Americans involves remembering periods of both lightness and darkness, reflecting on uplifting times and sobering times, moments that have inspired hope and moments that have made us confront mankind's capacity for evil. Jews from Kishinev know this all too well. Starting in the 19th century, the time of the earliest tombstone here, the Jewish community flourished. In the early 1900s, 16 Jewish schools supported 2,000 pupils and a community of 50,000 people. Kishinev's Jews built businesses and raised families, supported their community, and served their country. But the Jews' promise led to prejudice, and the pogrom of 1903 forced the community to rebuild. In the years before World War II, Kishinev's Jewish community blossomed to a population of some 400,000, with 70 synagogues across the city. That is, before they experienced some of the deepest and most hope-purging darkness our world has known, which is why we say today and every day, never again. But among Moldovan's Jews' history of highs and lows, today's event is an unequivocally optimistic milestone, one that reaffirms Moldova's commitment to its Jewish community and the Jewish community's sense of belonging in Moldova. You have done something remarkable. You have cleaned up over 40 acres of property, clearing paths and uncovering tombstones to pave the way for today's rededication ceremony. In Jewish tradition, respect for the dead, kavod hamet, is considered the purest form of generosity because one can expect nothing in return for their deeds. Though you may not expect anything in return, I am confident that your efforts here will have far-reaching and long-lasting effects. The rededicated cemetery will allow Jews from Moldova and across the world to return and visit the grave sites of their ancestors. The newly planned Holocaust Memorial and Museum will affirm that Jews belong in a Moldova that rejects anti-Semitism and hate. And the synagogue being rebuilt close by will help reignite the fire of the Jewish community that once burned so bright here in Kishinev. Much credit is due to the Moldovan parliament and the government for embracing this effort. In recent years, and especially over the last 6 months, you have recognized the importance of preserving heritage, while at the same time working proactively to combat the ever-present threat and rising anti-Semitism. You have done that not just through words, which of course carry weight, but through actions and good deeds. I applaud you for recently adopting the international working definition of anti-Semitism and for bringing Holocaust remembrance education to Moldovan schools. Finally, on behalf of the Trump administration, I want to thank you for your cooperation with the State of Israel. Since 2004, an Israeli-Moldova Joint Commission has met 4 times to discuss economic, technological, and research cooperation. And just over a year ago, Prime Minister Philip visited Israel and joined Prime Minister Netanyahu in affirming plans for further bilateral relations. Already, many of the 75,000 Israelis with Moldovan heritage have returned to invest in Moldova's economy. And most recently, standing steadfast with the United States and Israel in the halls of the United Nations against the discrimination and bias against the world's only Jewish state, the State of Israel. When we leave stereotypes at the door, we see that such cross-cultural and interfaith interactions are not just viable, but mutually enriching. So as we go forward from today's event, let's constantly look to the positive. On an international level, let's look to what unites, not divides, the U.S., Israel, and Moldova. On a communal level, let's look to how Moldova and its Jewish residents can grow in tandem. And on an individual level, let's remember those buried in Kishinev's Jewish cemetery so that their legacy lives on. Thank you, God bless Moldova, and God bless the United States of America. If I may, I would just like to recognize Speaker Kandu with a little appreciation, an award presented to Speaker Kandu for the extraordinary contributions advancing the cause of Holocaust remembrance, ensuring historical truth, and promoting cultural preservation of sites related to the heritage of American citizens. Thank you.
Well, I thank you very much. Indeed, it's a surprisingly and not expected. Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Packer, and also for your great words. on behalf of the administration as well as the United States. And thank you for all your support and of course the great ideas and the contributions of our developments and what we have achieved. Definitely without your help that would be impossible. Thank you. Și dați-mi voie, dragi colegi, să...
Dear colleagues, to give the floor to the minister who has a special contribution and the ministry who has had an important contribution to the organization of today's events, and not only Mrs. Monica Babuc, who has touched us today with her speech at the... So, please take the floor. Dear Mr. Speaker, dear Mrs. Deputy Speaker, dear Mr. Paul Becker, dear ambassadors, distinguished guests, representatives of the Jewish community in Moldova, and everybody present here, I'd like to greet you today in a very important day with a very profound significance, but also a very tragical aspect. As I've mentioned today already, it has a very important significance because this tragedy, the tragedy of the Holocaust, gave the humankind the possibility to learn the lesson, a very painful lesson. The initiative of the Speaker of the Moldovan Parliament, Mr. Candu, contributes to completing this lesson which was learned by the Moldovan people, that he's speaking about the remembrance of Holocaust victims. We've had a very serious attitude towards these events. You know very well the attitude of our legislative regarding the Elie Wiesel final report and its approval. It's and followed by a national plan of action, and Parliament declared the 27th of January a national day for the commemoration of the victims of the Holocaust, and this couldn't pass unobserved. All the citizens of the Republic of Moldova, the intellectuals, people of culture and teachers, they were all informed. They were the ones who carried this message on. They distributed and disseminated in universities and other educational institutions. The Museum of Moldovan Jews we've started working on this project, and I cannot but recall the name of an important person. Beside Mr. Paul Becker, I would like to speak about Mr. Rabbi Baker, a representative of OSCE on the victims of the Holocaust, who was a great supporter of the idea of the history of Moldovan Jews, because the representatives of the Jewish community in Moldova have written golden pages in the history of our country, linked to research, culture, education, development of the economy, and this truth cannot be avoided when we speak and refer to the Jewish community in Moldova. The Holocaust must be profound history page, that painful history page, but it must be researched and studied. I must recognize that the launching of Mr. Paul Shapiro's book, The Chisinau Ghetto, contributed a lot to completing some gaps in the knowledge about the victims of the Holocaust and the history of the Holocaust in Moldova. But I assure you that that Moldovan historians are taking serious steps to contribute to this event. As I've mentioned, the Jewish History Museum and the Jewish cemetery, there was a joy today. I felt this joy because this is unique. This cemetery is unique. I would like to draw your attentions. It is a unique case in history because this cemetery is part of museum and is subordinated to a public central authority. The Itzik Manger Library is under the subordination of my ministry, and it is very significant as a cultural forum, and it is joined by this old Jewish cemetery. There is a plan to rehabilitate this cemetery. So this is a new stage in the development of the history of the Jewish community in the Republic of Moldova. Besides this, in the Republic of Moldova, we are doing a lot to promote education on the Holocaust, in order to keep alive the memory of the Holocaust and prevent any potential phenomena of the kind. There are deep conscientious processes of raising awareness in the whole world. And this is also happening in the Republic of Moldova. The policies promoted at the national level by the government, parliament, the Ministry of Culture comprise realistic measures oriented towards knowing the atrocities of the Holocaust and their prevention. The school curriculum is based on human values, general human values, on democratization, respect for other cultures, elimination of violence in relations with other people, eliminating discrimination based on religious, political, or ethnical criteria. The current curriculum is also has special reference to the Holocaust. Under the chapter regarding the Second World War, there are special compartments referring to crimes against humanity and the peculiarities of the Holocaust in the Romanian space. High school programs comprise chapters about the situation of ethnic groups in Romania during the 40s and the identities and peculiarities in Bessarabia in that period. Education elements planned for 2017-2019 related to the approval of the International Elie Wiesel Commission report. So they are reflected on the agenda of the ministry. We are going to organize concrete actions. We are going to review curriculums in order to develop educational programs. We proposed changes in the methodological principles regarding the teaching about Holocaust. We have analyzed the possibility to complete history books on the chapter of crimes against humanity during the Second World War, but the most important, we drafted a curriculum on the object matter of study, Holocaust history and life lessons. It concerns high school students, their parents and teachers, drafted in accordance with the recommendations of Yad Vashem from Jerusalem and of the Centropa Institute. This educational module, will be introduced in the 2019-2020 study year. A special place in education regarding Holocaust has to do with extracurricular activities like commemoration of Holocaust Victims' Day, raising awareness among students about the Holocaust, involving students from around the country, educating and training teachers in this regard. We have had such trainings for 200 teachers from Moldova abroad, with the support of international institutions. Dear Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues, dear guests, all these have been done, as I've mentioned, for capitalizing on the educational aspect of the history of the Holocaust.
Mrs. Minister, thank you very much for your speech. Of course, we see a lot of achievements based on these actions, and we are heading for the success of our developments, so that to update each year the curricula. And it is important that all the generations know the horrors of the past in order to be able to overcome the challenges of the future. And it is important that every day we remember and we educate our children in this spirit in our families. And I hope certainly the world will be better day by day. And on this occasion, I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Derek Hogan, the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the USA to the Republic of Moldova. As I mentioned, the USA play a very important role in the development of the Republic of Moldova, and especially in all the aspects related to the commemoration of the Holocaust victims, having a very rich history, having important museums, including the Washington Museum, which many of you maybe have visited, and we intend to develop more our relations on this dimension, so that in the nearest future we can visit the Washington Museum, and the people from the Washington Museum can come to the Republic of Moldova to help us develop our museum. And a lot of people originating from Moldova of Jewish ethnicity live in the USA, and very famous Jewish people, designers, inventors, mayors, politicians, and in the nearest future we are planning to develop a special edition of information on more than 200 of Jewish personalities living in the USA and who originate from the USA. Dear friend, you have the floor. Thank you, dear Mr. Chairman of the Parliament. Dear Minister Ulyanovsky, Mrs. Minister Babuk, dear Deputy Speaker of the Knesset, Mrs. Plosko, dear representatives of the Jewish community in the Republic of Moldova, Mr. Packer, dear colleagues, diplomats, dear friends, it is an honor to be here today. I will speak in brief, because many speakers before me have mentioned the most important aspects. Today we remember the systematic persecutions and the brutal massacration of 6 million Jewish people, millions of Roma people, religious leaders, LGBT persons, disabled persons, and others who have fought courageously against the brutal regimes. Today we remember the sacrifices and the lessons of the Holocaust in order to ensure that this black page in the world history is not forgotten by our generation and by the future generations. We have to recognize that all of us, we have the obligation to ensure that these acts, these events will never be repeated. The commitments of the Republic of Moldova represent a very important step towards the achievement of these goals, and we are looking forward to see the progresses in the future. The USA are ready to collaborate with the government of the Republic of Moldova in order to inform the youth about the Holocaust atrocities, to fight the anti-Semitism, to preserve the Jewish cemetery in Chisinau as a place for reflection, mentioned properly and respected properly. The USA are committed to collaborate with the Republic of Moldova to protect the rights, the fundamental rights and the dignity, the inherent dignity of each person, and to fight any forms of racism and intolerance. The presence of Mr. Packer here is a token to our commitment to collaborate with the people of the Republic of Moldova in this aspect. I'd like to thank you again for the possibility to have the floor before you on this solemn occasion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'd like to reiterate that you and other distinguished ambassadors who speak the Romanian language, we are very honored to have you among us, and we are very happy to see how well you speak Romanian, especially if you take into account your short time since you have been nominated as ambassador here. So we have mentioned the role of OSCE in commemorating the victims of the Holocaust. Mrs. Babuk spoke about the distinguished fellow, Mr. Becker, who has repeatedly visited our country, and I'd like to give floor to Mr. Klaus Neukirch, who is the head of OSCE mission to the Republic of Moldova. Dear Mr. Kandu, Chairman of the Parliament, dear Mrs. Deputy Speaker, Mrs. Plosko, dear Mr. Ulyanovsky, dear Mrs. Babuk, Your Excellencies, the representatives of the Jewish community. It is an honor to be given the floor at this round table, which is a tribute to this week of Holocaust victims commemoration, and also in the cities on the left bank of the river Dnistru that we have to mention here. The commemoration of the Holocaust victims is a mourning activity, is a necessary one, and at the same time it is a moment of hope. The actions that have been undertaken by the Parliament and the government of the Republic of Moldova give us even more actions, more hope that this commemoration will contribute to build in the future a society based on tolerance, inclusiveness, and also a society who has learned the history lessons, that free of hatred, of all propaganda that have caused the tragedy of this of our humankind. We welcome and we supported the actions undertaken by the Parliament and of the Republic of Moldova and the Ministry of Education, and also the declaration, the statement of accepting the final report, which was followed by a plan of actions, the results of which we can see. And Mrs. Babuk mentioned the results of these actions. The school curriculum, which is going to start in September. It is important to mention the preparedness or the preparing of the pupils of the new generations to this respect. In these years when we remain without the last witnesses of this tragedy, it is very important. So we are committed to support you in your undertakings regarding the building, the institution of museum complex on the Jewish life in the Republic of Moldova, on the Holocaust, which are made to the commemoration of the Holocaust victims. You have studied the example of Bucharest, and also Mr. Rabbi Baker was mentioned as a very good example. We encourage you to collaborate in the future with the Jewish community with a view to come to a good end of inauguration of a museum complex related to the Holocaust victims commemoration and Jewish life commemoration, and to support the education of the youth and of the population in general. As we have mentioned, the Republic of Moldova has approved the definition of anti-Semitism, which is a very important step in fighting the anti-Semitism, which unfortunately now we can see that it is more strengthened in many European countries. And in this case, we hope that the Parliament will work to this end, work on the criminal legislation regarding the hatred crimes, and OSCE is also committed to support in this field. And we are also committed to contribute to police and judicial system capacity to fight hatred crimes. I'd also like to mention that the Slovak chairmanship acting chairmanship will organize a conference at the beginning of February in Bratislava on Holocaust victims commemoration, and I'm very glad that the Republic of Moldova will be represented at this conference and can share and actively participate in exchange of opinion within the OSCE. We are committed to support you in this important step that you have embarked on, and I'd like to express my gratitude and congratulate you on the organization of this week of Holocaust Victims Remembrance. Thank you, Your Excellency. I'd like to tell you that everything starting from that statement and all the acts that have been approved here in the Parliament, they did not meet with the resistance from our factions in the Parliament, regardless of the political colors of different parties. We had a common understanding of all this, of the importance of these events. And also I hope that the next Parliament, at the next legislation that we are going to adopt regarding the criminal codes and so on, will be supported by the political forces in the Republic of Moldova. Now I would like to give the floor to our friends from Poland, that are represented today by Mrs. Natalia Siniaeva-Pankowska, who is the representative of the Never Again Association. Welcome to the Republic of Moldova. Thank you very much.
To be invited to attend the official events on the occasion of Holocaust Remembrance Day in Moldova on behalf of my organization, the Never Again Association. The Never Again has for more than 2 decades actively participated in Holocaust commemoration and countering anti-Semitism and various types of Holocaust distortion in Poland and internationally. All extermination camps were located in Poland, and the Holocaust in Polish lands was perpetrated by Nazi Germany. Nevertheless, even knowing these facts, there were attempts to distort Holocaust history and even examples of outright denial in the 90s and later. We know that there were different attitudes of Poles towards the Jewish faith during the war. Some rescued Jews, some blackmailed them to Germans, harmed them, but most of people, they stayed indifferent. The process of dealing with the past and the debates about the legacy of the Holocaust was challenging in Poland and took many years after the groundbreaking book of Jan Tomasz Gross, The Neighbors, about the role of the local population, was published in 2000 and 2001. Today, we are pleased to learn about the efforts of Moldova to deal with a difficult past and to initiate and organize activities to raise public awareness of both Holocaust history and minority history in this country. If the Moldovan public has enhanced knowledge about the lessons and the specificity of the Holocaust in Moldova, Holocaust by bullets, the society will be more inclusive, open-minded and sensitive towards religious, ethnic-based violence, conflicts and human rights violations. Based on my organization's experience, as well as my own museum experience as museum educator and curator in Poland, I would like to refer to educational activities as an important factor here. In addition to Holocaust teaching in schools, museums and exhibitions should play an important role in enhancing the knowledge about the Holocaust, as well as to be the space for visitors not only to learn the history, but also to reflect on it. The museums are also spaces where you can cultivate empathy amongst young people and general population, not let them to be indifferent. The initiative to create the Museum of Moldovan Jews by the Jewish community and supported by the Moldovan government is an important one, but also a challenging and long-lasting process. We know it from our Polish experience. It took more than 20 years for Poland to create the Museum of the History of Polish Jews, Polin. A group of Polish and international experts, professional curators, scholars, historians developed the exhibition which presents the entire complexity of a Polish Jewish history, 1,000 years of history, the conflict, but also cooperation. It presents the Jewish history as an integral part of a Polish history. We don't say the history of Jews in Poland, but the history of Jews of Poland. And this is a difference. I believe it can be also an interesting and inspiring experience for Moldova to create the museum which will present an inclusive history of the country. Another important aspect I would like to mention is the inclusion of Jewish and Roma history and the Holocaust into the existing core exhibitions, permanent exhibitions of Moldovan history museums, including the National History Museum, which intends to represent the history of all people living in this country. At the moment, these minority narratives, including the Holocaust, are absent from the narratives of the core exhibitions in Moldovan museums. Moreover, today I had a chance to visit a temporary Holocaust exhibition at the National History Museum, and there is no mention of a local specificity of the Holocaust and, for example, the role of a Romanian regime under Ioan Antonescu. I believe it should also be a challenging task, and there will be many questions to be answered and challenges to deal with. There are just some of the questions. How to include minority narrative into already existing official mainstream national narrative? How to present victims' perspective, victims' experience in order to cultivate empathy amongst visitors when we know that most of Holocaust photographs were taken by perpetrators and they wanted to humiliate and dehumanize victims. We took at victims through perpetrators' eyes. How to find the way to deliver the message to all Moldovans, not only Jews, but also non-Jews, to invite them to think critically about their own history, to think about this difficult past and to reflect on this. So it should be difficult, long-lasting, but very important process for Moldova, as it was for Poland. And as the Never Again Association, we would be happy to contribute to share our Polish experience, not in one way of transfer of knowledge, but through mutual cooperation, dialogue, and learning from each other. We have already cooperated with the Jewish community in Moldova for a number of years in different activities and projects, and we would like to continue our cooperation on a larger scale. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much. Vă mulțumim foarte mult, într-adevăr.
Thank you very much. You have an outstanding experience that will help us to overcome our some errors maybe that we have done at the beginning, and it is important for us to study the experience of our colleagues from the Never Again Association. There is a Jewish community in Romania, a very important one. Regretfully, Mr. Aurel Weiner did not manage to come to Chișinău because he is ill at the moment, but he has sent us a video message. Dear Mr. Chairman of the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova, dear MPs, honored audience. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much and to thank the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova personally, to Mr. Candu for inviting me to a dialogue on the topic of Holocaust in the Republic of Moldova, in Chișinău. It is a very great honor and responsibility for me, to which I wish I could participate directly, to be present physically, but due to certain reasons I was not able to come to Chișinău. That's why I resorted to video message. I'd like to congratulate you for on the occasion of the organization of this event, of the International Remembrance Day of the Holocaust victims, an international day adopted as a decision, a very important decision of the General Assembly of the UN. Why this decision was adopted? Because the Holocaust, the Jewish Holocaust during the Second World War, has a unique value which cannot be forgotten by the entire humankind. 6 million of Jews that were exterminated, in addition to which other people were murdered in the camps, in the death camps, in different localities in Poland, Belarus, and other countries. But it is important that these crimes were not just crimes. They took place according to a very detailed planning, very well organized on ideological aspects, very advanced at those times, in those times. In other words, it was planned to seize the people so that they cannot come back to their homes, and different phases of physical extermination have taken place. There were different stages. People were divided among those who will go to work and who are going to be murdered. So I will reiterate, 6 million Jews and Roma people have been exterminated. In this respect, I'd like to add that the Romanian Rabbi, Mr. Alexandru Șofran, who now is the Rabbin of Geneva, before was saying that the most important God creation is the human being. So if you murdered a human being, you murdered the humankind. This was the topic of the German Holocaust. The Holocaust, which was planned to the very last detail by the German and Nazi forces and the collaborationists in different countries of Europe. Today we are speaking about Holocaust when we have peace. That's why allow me to welcome you once again. Besides the Bună Ziua, the Romanian Bună Ziua, by the greeting of Jews everywhere, Shalom, peace. We wish to live in peace. Either we are Jews or of other nationalities. This event is to promote this wish to have peace. The Holocaust in Romania had many facets. There was a set of measures of discrimination, of extermination, and of eliminating from the social and economical life the Jews, up to deportations and physical liquidations by gendarmes and elements of Romanian army. I have to add to this that the sufferings of the Jews was to be sent to Transnistria, this area of sufferings and of death. It is right that a number of Jews that were deported to Transnistria managed to come back to Romania, but let us not forget that they came very traumatized. These were people that have become very fierce people under the conditions of the hardships in Transnistria. We are speaking about Romanian Jews and also Bessarabian Jews, and I'm happy that the government of the Republic of Moldova adopted in 2016 the final report of the Commission of the Study of the Holocaust of Elie Wiesel, and and I found some concluding figures. When the Romanian troops came to Romania, to Bessarabia, there were 112,000 Jews. Many of them were sent or deported to Transnistria, and others were liquidated without any trial, without any reasons. Just because they were Jews, they have been shot by elements of Romanian army. As a Romanian Jew, as a Romanian living in Romania, I'm very much touched that the elements of the Romanian army have killed people and innocent people, innocent Jews in Bessarabia. We now have to remember this period of this tragedy, not only of the Jews, but also of the mankind. And nowadays we are living true history. We are trying to remember all the painful elements, all the sad elements, so that the people never forget and learn from the history lessons about the things that have happened. In Romania, the Federation of the Jewish communities from Romania, and not only them, I'd like to emphasize that there is a decision of the government of Romania by which the day of 9th of October is celebrated, is a day to commemorate the Holocaust in Romania, which coincides with the beginning of the deportations of Jewish people from South Bukovina to Transnistria. Very few people of those deported managed to come back, and they were very traumatized. That's why allow me to propose, to suggest you to remember, to always remember our martyrs, the Jewish martyrs from Romania and Bukovina and Bessarabia, that were the object of the most atrocities of the Holocaust, the deportation to Transnistria, shootings that took place, and so on. In Romania, the Jews that have survived, they have passed through all the atrocities following the Holocaust. Jews were denied the right to work, the right to study in the state schools, and were deprived of many other rights, and we have led a very hard life. Nowadays, of course, we are living in a different period of history. After the revolution in 1989, Romania has given us back the rights and the obligations as the citizens of the free Romania. And together we have to remember the sufferings of those who have passed through the Holocaust, of those who were killed in hard conditions in Nazi concentration camps, that were after a short period of living in ghetto, were sent to gas cameras. Let us not forget the Holocaust. That the Holocaust must never be repeated, never again. And I would add, never again, nowhere, and in no time. I'd like you to remember this and to fight together so that the Holocaust is never repeated. Thank you very much for your attention and for this special invitation. If you allow me, I'd like to promise to the Jewish people and to citizens of the Republic of Moldova, to the MPs, I will be available to visit you whenever you consider useful or important to visit you. Shalom, peace. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank Mr. Aurel Weiner. We wish him a lot of health, and I'd like to tell you that our event organized today in Parliament is aired online and by other TV stations, and also the registrations, the pictures of today's event will be sent to Mr. Weiner. I'd like to give floor to Mr. Ion Duminica. Let us not forget that the Holocaust is not only the sacrifice and the tribute paid to Jewish community, but also to Roma people. And I'm giving the floor to Mr. Ion Duminica, Doctor of Political Science, Head of the Unit for Ethnic Minorities of the Institute of Cultural Heritage of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research, Executive Director of the Roma Public Association, Porozhan.
Thanks a lot. I'd like to remind you that this commemoration event started in 2014. We gathered at the Ministry of Foreign Relations back then, and today we're witnessing another series of events of this kind. So I'd like to thank the Parliament on this occasion. I'd like to start with some statistic data. According to the resolution of the European Parliament of 2015 on International Roma Day, regarding anti-Roma attitudes and the commemoration of the Roma genocide during the Second World War, at least 500,000 Roma people were exterminated during the Second World War on the European continent. According to the decision of the Parliament of the Republic of Moldova 180 of 22nd of July 2016 on the approval of the declaration of the Parliament on approving and accepting the Elie Wiesel final report, it says that 20,000 Roma people were deported to Transnistria and 11,000 died there. According to the data in this report, most of them Roma people died were starved to death, were frozen, and most of them were women and children who were demeaned. They learned lessons. This tragedy taught us some lessons. The main one was, in my opinion, the fact that you should never harm anyone ever. There are no bad or good people on the earth. We are all godly creatures. We have different visions and views on life, but the fundamental criterion is not to do to others what you don't want to be happening to yourself, your family, your country, your community, because what you do against somebody else comes back to you. So the lessons. The victims of the Holocaust were followed by other victims, unfortunately. Those who executed these atrocities became victims in their turn. So we are not going to revive and recover the victims. We would like, together with Jewish community, to commemorate the victims. positive actions were taken in the Republic of Moldova in this regard. In 2018, a Center for the Commemoration of Victims of the Holocaust was created. Last year in Comrade, a permanent exhibition was inaugurated on this topic, based on a decision of the Parliament from 2017, approving an action plan related to the acceptance of the Elie Wiesel final report. So there is a point in this decision regarding a project for commemorating the Roma tragedy during the Second World War and the building of a monument. In 2003, there was built monument in a park in the capital with support of the French Alliance. But there were some human beings, I don't want to call them bad, who destroyed the monument. It didn't last even 1 year. So the Roma people want to rehabilitate this monument. It was built by Roma civil society together with development partnership. We don't want to repeat this mistake. We want a partnership with the central public authorities and the Interethnic Relations Agency. According to the action plan of this agency till 2020, it should examine a special division for Roma issues. So this division must be instituted under the Interethnic Agency in partnership with central public administration and development partners. We should re-establish this monument which was destroyed. It is a pity that it was ruined in such a short time from its installation. So we need a sustainable partnership with the public administration, the central public administration. I would like to express a wish. We don't want only planned actions. We want achieved actions. Not all the actions in action plans for the support of Roma people will be enforced, because they're very numerous, but at least several actions every year should be enforced and carried out. So, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Dominica. The agency has a special role and will enjoy the support of the Parliament and the government for the carrying out of such actions. In the end, last but not least, we're going to listen to the message of Mr. Belarus, president of the Association of Former Prisoners in Ghettos and Concentration Camps. Thank you. As an university professor, I will read my lecture standing. In Moldova, in the past years, three fundamental documents were published on the Holocaust. Sergei Nazaria, History Pages of the Holocaust, the first document. It was distributed in all schools, published in the official language of the country and in Russian. Rubin Uger, another author born in Brasov, who was in the Odessa ghetto and other ghettos, wrote the book Doomed Years. He was a young man during those years, and he wrote everything in a notebook. This book was published in Russian, in the state language, and in English in Chisinau. Another author who is of from Moldova, living in USA, by name Levit. He wrote a book on the dictatorship of Ion Antonescu. In Chisinau, he was not. This book was not printed. It was rejected, but it was printed in Tiraspol. So thank you to the government of the Republic of Moldova for carrying out events in the commemoration of for the commemoration of the victims of the Holocaust. I'm a member of the association since the 90s, and such events, such an event is a first in our country at this level, even if it comes in the pre-electoral period. When we speak about victims of the Holocaust on the territory of Moldova and Transnistria, there is a book published in the US, Holocaust, the Forgotten Cemetery, Transnistria, the Forgotten Cemetery. So I'll stop. You'll make your own conclusions about how many Jews were killed on this territory. In the 1930s, the first census was carried out in Romania. According to this census in Romania, in the 30s, there were about 750,000 Jews. Jewish families were very numerous. I think 7% more were added during 10 years, reaching about 800,000 people. 350,000 of them, of the Jews, lived in Bessarabia, and the others in the old kingdom of Romania. In USSR, of the Moldovan Socialist Republic, there was a census. So there were 38,000 Jews, according to this last census, in the Soviet Moldova. In this region, there were more than 1 million Jews, also considering Jews in Odessa and other areas of Ukraine. About 50,000 Jews were moved to Siberia. In this territory, Mr. Levit speaks about 1 million Jews in this region. I'll say one thing, that after an explosion on the 22nd of October 1941 in a police station, for each soldier, on the order of Ceausescu, for each dead soldier, Jews were killed. in Odessa in such way about 90,000 Jews were killed based on this order, and 20,000 Jews were burnt alive. Besides this, on the 1st of October 1941, Antonescu asked Alexian, the governor of Transnistria, how many Jews were left in Odessa. He said 100,000, and on his order, those were killed. So in 1943, on the territory of Transnistria, on the order of Antonescu, based on the statistics, there were 50,000 Jews left. So I was in the Odessa ghetto. The Soviet army released 40,000 Jews in this territory. Stalin said that the death of a person is tragedy, and the death of a million is statistics. But for behind each of this statistical figure, there is the destiny of a person, of a human being. We didn't live only for ourselves. We haven't lived only for ourselves all these years, but even for those who didn't manage to live and love and thrive. We should also remind about the Roma people, 50,000 Roma people killed in some areas of the country. Thank you, Mr. Belarus. We'd like to wish good health to all those who have survived, who have gone through such an experience related to Holocaust and ghettos, and we should not forget that beside the Jewish community, the Roma community also suffered. I'd like to continue. Some surprises lie ahead, and we would like to ask you to visit our exhibition on the second floor of the Parliament related to the history of Jews in Bessarabia, and there, and the opening of the exhibition will have another surprise. After the exposition, we are all invited to the premiere of the movie, which trailer we've seen today. Thank you for your participation. So, see you in the lobby.